Just to briefly tell you who I am, Brian Goodpasture. So I spent 17 years with Walmart. Everything from, all of it was inside of logistics. And so everything from designing distribution centers, operating distribution centers, and transportation. A piece of that was in the .com world, and I left Walmart about almost 18 months ago to start a 3PL of my own. And so we have a warehouse out on the West Coast, and we move some boxes for people. So we'll leave it at that, and I would like to talk more about that at some point, but that's kind of where we'll leave it. But what we'll talk about today for B2C, kind of things to consider when you're talking about B2C supply chain. So B2B supply chain versus B2C supply chain. And some of these, maybe you'll think of them, and when I start talking about these examples, and you'll say, man, that makes a lot of sense. And other ones for your business, potentially, and others may or may not. So what makes a difference in the B2C world? And supply chain is really, so in B2C, supply chain is really the whole thing. There's never really a retailer to stop at. You're going all the way from the manufacturing site straight to the customer, all dependent upon your supply chain. So the three things that I'm just going to call out today, labor inside of those, wherever you're doing your order filling at, whether that's a 3PL, maybe it's the Amazon locations, maybe it's the Walmart locations, or you're doing your own drop ship. So any of those examples, there's labor, the freight that's associated, and also materials, cardboard boxes, tape, all the fill material that goes with those to make sure your product is safe, all those different things to consider. And so we'll start with pack size. And I want to start with, we're going to talk about several examples, but I'm going to start with the example I'm going to call the dollhouse. And so a dollhouse, large box, maybe yay big by yay big. Inside of and so that pack size, naturally for a brick and mortar store, is a pack of 2. So you send a big cardboard box, it's got 2 dollhouses in it. They open the cardboard box, they put the 2 dollhouses on the shelf. That works really well. Now we flip over to B2C. So those 2 boxes, still that pack 2 goes to, let's call it Amazon or Walmart distribution center, or even your own distribution center for DSV, and a customer wants one of those. And they want that the week before Christmas. And so the week before Christmas, everyone's worried about their daughters they don't want that to show up on the front porch, and you don't want that dollhouse to be seen on the front porch. So the retailers and yourselves are trying to put that in a nice box so that it's hidden from sight when it lands on the front porch. And so now we take this box that had 2 dollhouses in it, we pull 1 dollhouse out, and because that doesn't naturally fit in any kind of box, we're manufacturing a cardboard box on the fly to put around that particular box. And we've got 1 box left, or the original master carton with 1 unit inside of it. We put fill around the outside so that you can then use that original corrugate to ship the other one. So now you've got 1 box that you had to manufacture, you had to use all the cardboard to make that happen, and the other where you had to use fill to make all of that work. So in both scenarios, kind of a somewhat difficult situation to make sure that the customers are happy in that scenario. So for some of those bigger items, just lobbing things out there, for some of those bigger items, maybe it makes sense in your B2C world to go to a pack 1 of 1 so that it's easier to handle those things and get those to the customer without issues. Just an example. And then we'll go to the toy car. And I'm going to use the toy car, and I'm also going to use a different example in this one as well. So the toy car. And so when you go to Walmart or any other retailer, and you go to the area where you see the toy cars, and there's the nice Corvette, there's the Charger, there's the big wheel, and so all these trucks and things, and you're sorting through and you're finding the one you like. And if you don't find the one you like, depending on how your child is performing that day, you may or may not still buy one that you didn't necessarily want, but it makes everything go away, so you buy a different one. But you don't do that in .com land. So in .com land, you always buy the one that you want, regardless of the scenario. So .com has to have those specific items in stock. And so some of these examples, a supplier you may ship into a mass retailer in a mixed carton. So you'll ship a big box into a retailer that has blues and reds and greens and all the different colors of the rainbow, and they'll take that box, they'll open it up, and they'll put it in the dump bin. But in the land of .com, you have to be more specific in making sure that you have the right items, the right place, at the right time. So probably more consistent packs, packs of only the blues, packs of only the greens, those type of things to make sure that your in-stocks are consistent. And so that's a little bit different because in that scenario, cars all kind of have a different UPC. So it's easy to track the difference between them. Now, if I jump over to like a rubber ball, and so we've all bought the big rubber ball that's in the big cage. So you walk by, you grab the rubber ball, and it doesn't matter whether it's yellow, blue, green. They all have the same UPC. But in .com, even the same UPC, if I want a blue one, or how many people have ordered something that you thought was going to be blue and it comes back and it's yellow because that UPC is consistent. And so it doesn't say, it's kind of that no color is guaranteed. And you see that sometimes on ads or in your .com areas. So things to consider is how do you get, when a customer wants a blue ball, how do you get that blue ball or that red ball to them? Example 3, the pen, and this one I think is fun. So a pen or a pencil. So if you're shipping that into a brick and mortar store, depending on where it's going and how things are going or how it works, but you're going to ship in a box, probably a pack of 24 units to a box. Inside of that, there's going to be inner packs, 3 or 4 inner packs, 3 or 4 units inside of an inner pack. And then that's going to get broken. So at a different retailer that's going to go through their distribution center, you're going to break pack that. They're going to break pack that carton, and those inners are going to go to all the different stores. So, and that's great for a store. But if all those things I mentioned, which in the B2C land, do you really need an inner pack? So is a customer ever going to say, you're going to force your customer to buy a full inner pack of 3 units in a box or 4 units in that inner pack? Or are you always going to break the inner and then have to pick the units that are inside, which is probably the case. So you're always going to break that inner. So are inners important in the B2C world? I would argue they're probably not as important in the B2C world. I would also just throw something out there that maybe it's a little outlandish, but in terms of packaging, so the pen, does it matter once they've seen all the nice reviews and all the things that are happening out there, does the pen actually need a package at all? Does it need to be inside of a blister card that has all the nice blisters and all the pictures and all those things on it? Or maybe that's an option for someone to not, maybe they can select not to have packaging associated with it or some effect. So as a seller, you can save some money on that card, the blister, all those pieces. If they just want the pen, then maybe you just sell them the pen and not all of the packaging that is necessary in a brick and mortar world and not as necessary in a clicking world. So we'll talk freight. And freight seems it is one of the biggest expenses in the supply chain. Some of these are simple, so your warehouse location, so Amazon, Walmart, many of the others, they talk about how they can get to you in 2 days or less. And that's a product of having their warehouses in the right places so that they're close to the customers. The catch to that, and maybe you put 5 facilities on the ground or 6 in the case of Walmart, and then but if you don't have the product in the right locations, so if you've only stored that product in California and you have someone that orders it in Atlanta, you're still not going to make that 2-day transit regardless of whether you had another distribution center in Atlanta as well. So it's making sure that your inventory is in the right locations. That could apply to retailers. That can also apply to drop ship or whatever, however you ship your product. Are you in the right places in the U.S.? And can you maintain the right levels of inventory in the right places in the U.S. to be able to, or abroad, to be able to execute those expectations? Carton fill percentage is fun as well. Maybe just a pet peeve of my own, but how many people have ever gotten a box? Let's go back to the pen. You wanted a pen, and you get a box that you could have fit in a 52-inch TV inside of. So some of that being able to, and again, for those in the room, so that is probably on the retailer if you're putting your product into the Amazons or into the .com or into the Walmart.com locations. In the DSV world, that would fall back onto someone that's trying to ship that product to make sure they had the appropriate box sizes and multiple of them to make sure that they could ship those boxes and not use as much space inside of, let's call it a FedEx or a UPS truck, so that those freight rates can come down. And then upstream, everyone thinks outbound. How do I how am I the most effective to get to the final landing spot, the customer? But when you take it back up a notch, how did I get that product from point of origin to my warehouse location? So when I say multiple warehouse locations is a value, it may not be a value if you're not able to get value on the front side as well. So if you're, let's call it, you ship one full truckload a year, if you only have one full truckload, it might make sense to just ship that one full truckload to one location instead of splitting it and having two truckloads to two locations, or two halves to two locations, or a third to three locations, because those, when you start splitting that load up, it starts to get expensive. So just things to ponder when you're working in the B2C world. And then materials. So units in a box, and I'll call it the first scenario, marshmallow and chocolate. It's campfire season, so I know for me personally, I've probably never bought a package of marshmallows without buying chocolate, so for s'mores. And so in that scenario, if you have both the chocolate and the marshmallows in the same facility, you can put both of those in the same box when the customer clicks all the buttons. And so I'm sure Amazon, and I know Walmart did as well, they were running constant scenarios to say which items are being bought with other items, and can I get those items into a warehouse, or should those items be shipped separately? Or is there, kind of that pro-con, is there value in putting the products in the same warehouse or not? And so marshmallows with lawnmowers, there's probably no reason to have those in the same warehouse together specifically, but marshmallows and chocolate, there's a good reason to have those together so they can be in the same box. They can both bear that fixed cost of that carton that you're going to open up, the tape, and all the like that goes with it. And then box sizes. I commented on it a while ago, but where I talk about air, the opposite of air is just putting product inside of it, whether that's the peanuts, it's pieces of paper, it's the filled air. So all those different things that just occupy space, but they're also financially, those things cost money for people to put those fill things in. And then if you're thinking recyclable and all the like, then those things all have to go somewhere at the end. And so so your customers are going to put those somewhere, and that may be a trash can, or maybe they recycle, or wherever those things go. And then another fun one is cross-contamination and damage. So cross-contamination, when I think of cross-contamination and damage, the one that comes to mind, let's call it a liquid detergent. So so it could be water, it could be a liquid detergent, it could be anything, where those lids, while they're in transit, in their master carton going all the way from manufacturing to a store, there's no problem. They're always inside of that container. Basically the top of the box is always touching the lid, so those lids rarely pop off in that scenario. But when you pull that carton out, pull that unit out, and you put it into another carton that has air, has space, has fill in it, and maybe we try to throw a t-shirt in there, we try to throw fabric softener in there, or some other pieces inside of that carton to make better use of the cardboard. That product has a tendency, because it's now kind of sitting on its own, it doesn't have the protection of all its buddies, it doesn't have the cardboard to hold it together, those lids have a tendency to pop off. And so items like that, where there's liquids or different things that can contaminate, or maybe they have a smell to them that goes to a shirt, whatever those things look like, then there's the potential that B2C creates scenarios where the product has more tendency to be damaged than in a B2B world. So just, more things to think about. Is there protection, or should there be tape over some of those items? Is there a different way to package those items in the B2C world than there is in the B2B world? So I'll open it up for questions shortly, and my presentation is really pretty short. But the supply chain is, like I said earlier, it's really even more impactful in the B2C world than it is in the B2B world for many of those scenarios I shared. We've built for 50 to 100 years, we've built scenarios to make boxes the right size, and we've put them through testing to make sure nothing can damage all the way from manufacturing site to store. And now with B2C, somewhere in the process, we're taking items out of those boxes we've engineered for years and putting them into another box and hoping that it gets to the customer without damage. So where is the corporate focus? Where is your corporate focus? Is it on that B2B side where you want to leverage your B2B and just put that B2B box over in B2C and hope that everything works well? Or do you want to go out and design your own B2C master pack? So maybe you can go all the way back to origin and you can say, for my business to business, Walmart wants a pack of 12, or Dollar General wants a pack of 12. But for B2C, I can go back upstream and I can just build a box. If I've got small enough items, I can build a box about yay big. I can put 72, maybe I can put 144 items inside of that box, and I can get some benefit both in freight and corrugate and packaging, all the way from origin to the facility, that then helps me leverage my cost trying to get down to the consumer. And I say this a lot, but supply chain is simply a math problem. So as you start that math problem from origin all the way to the customer, then the way you define pack sizes at origin, the way you define how the product is going to get packaged together, how you're going to protect the product, all those things are just math problems to plug into your scenario to make sure you're doing the right thing for your own financial purposes, and also landing the product at the customer's door where they're happy and the product is safe. So it's kind of what just wanted to share a few things, and it's late in the afternoon, so I didn't want to get too technical this afternoon, but just kind of talk about things to consider when you're trying to package up your items for B2C. So any questions? Perfect. You guys have a great afternoon.